So we'll call this meeting to order. If we could I get a roll call vote?
Present.
Here.
Present.
Here.
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 All right. Can I get a motion to approval of the agenda?
I'll second.
Excellent. Moving to item 2, discussion and action tonight is to consider, we need a vote. Sorry, got a little rammy. Can we, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Now to number 2. To consider the candidate for a vacant board position. And tonight, we have Marcia Shears, and so what I'm looking for is a motion to appoint Marcia Shears to the vacant board position.
I'll move. So move.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing that there is no discussion, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, welcome, Marcia.
Everybody can walk.
Maybe you can come. All right, moving to 3, board reorganization. So this is a time where we elect the board, the new board, and elect our board positions or board officers. So at this time, we'll start with the president, and I'd like to see if there's any nominations for president.
I make the nomination that we nominate Nathaniel Melton for president.
I'll second that.
Is there any other nominations for board president?
I'd like to nominate Megan Benson Moreau. I'll second.
Is there any other nominations for board president? All right. Is there any other nominations for board president? So at this point, we can do ballots. Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you. Moving on to Vice President. Do we have any motions for Vice President? Any nominations, excuse me?
I'll nominate Megan Benson Moreau.
Second. Are there any other nominations for Vice President? Any other nominations for Vice President? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Now moving on to Clerk. Do we have any nominations for Clerk? I would like to nominate Paul Johnson.
I second.
Are there any other nominations for Clerk? Any other nominations? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Paul.
Sir?
Last position here is, do we have any nominations for Treasurer?
I nominate Marcia Schurz.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any other nominations for Treasurer? Any other nominations? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Marcia.
Yeah, thank you.
Move down. Okay.
Excellent. Just seeing if we had to move seats, that's all. That will happen next week if you want to know what's going on behind the scenes. I'm glad you all have a sense of humor. All right, well, now moving to presentations. We are going to move to A, student, staff, and community recognitions. And tonight, we have Nancy Bittney. If you would come up, please. Nancy's been nominated by Chris Bergheimer. And I'm going to read. As everyone already knows, Miss Bittney goes well above and beyond her guidance counselor title. She not only teaches her many SEL classes, but she helps administer assessments, helps with behavior issues, helps many families find available resources, helps with registration process, and many, many more things of all shapes and sizes. She's obviously been a great resource for so many students and staff in our building and community. Personally, I cannot put into words how appreciative I am for all her help this past school year. It has certainly been a privilege. Ms. Bittney was hired in the fall of 1993 and is now retiring in the spring of 2022. Chandra Stafford, nominated by Chris Bergheimer. Congratulations to Chandra Stafford for receiving the 2022 Herb Cole Education Foundational Teacher Fellow Award. She has chosen to receive the award for her skills as a leader and agent for positive change and her superior ability to inspire the love of learning. We're very proud of Mrs. Stafford and very fortunate to have her as a part of our Spooner Area School District team. So, congratulations. Isaac Hopke. here tonight?
Isaac chose to play baseball tonight. I don't know why.
Excellent. And he's nominated by Dennis Shears. We just want to congratulate Isaac Hoppy, who was selected as a 2022 Herb Cole Student Excellence Scholarship recipient. Isaac was chosen for this award based on his exceptional scholarship, leadership, citizenship, and school and community involvement. We're very proud of Isaac and wish him the best of luck for as he furthers his education. Job well done. Now, I might get this last name wrong. Dave Kaya from River's Edge Church?
Yeah.
Kaya, sorry about that. I apologize. Not nominated by Miss Giesregan. Everyone at Spooner Middle School would like to give a huge and sincere thank you for your generosity helping us out by tutoring students this past few months and providing staff with some wonderful treats. Thank you so much for being so willing and ready to help us out. Your generosity will not be forgotten. We are truly grateful. Thank you. Chris Bergheimer, if you would come up. And you're nominated by all of the Spooner Elementary staff. So all of those who are here. The Spooner Elementary staff would like to recognize Mr. Chris Bergheimer for his selfless involvement and compassionate concern for his students and staff. Mr. Bergheimer has truly made a big impact on our school already. His consistent presence in the classroom, lunchroom, playground, meetings, and hallway is a daily reminder of the commitment he accepts in leading all of us at Spooner Elementary School. One of the most appreciated qualities of Mr. Bergheimer is his personality. He is approachable, kind, and witty. Staffs and students alike not only respect him, but look to him for acknowledgement, genuine conversation, and even a bit of comedic relief. Witty. Mr. Bergheimer offers his time to listen to the concerns of his audience and is strategic in finding manageable solutions to challenging obstacles. Mr. Bergheimer's communication has been much appreciated and very welcomed. His obtainable response for advice or need is professional, punctual, and personal. Thank you, Mr. B, for displaying genuine responsibility to your team and report to your students. Lastly, we'd like Mr. Bergheimer to know just how honored we are to have him as our leader. Thank you for your kind-hearted, flexible approach when joining our team. You are so appreciated. That's awesome. All right, moving to item B, referendum project update. And if Brad Kunkel.
Hello. Tonight's update is going to be fairly brief as we're really closing in on turning over the additions. Over at the elementary school, casework was installed in the 4K classrooms as well as the new offices. Installation of flooring, including carpet plank, terrazzo, and quarry tile has began. This upcoming month, flooring, doors, remainder of casework, and ceiling tile is expected to be completed by the end of the month. At the middle school, framing of walls, door frames, electrical and plumbing rough-ins, drywall, taping, mudding, and sanding was completed. Above ceiling electrical and mechanical work has also been completed. And then for the Anthels gym, wall pads and flooring base was installed. This month, painting will start to take place this week. Installation of casework, doors, flooring, and ceilings are scheduled for this month. And then at the Anthels gym, corner guards will be installed. For both additions, still expecting to turn it over June 10th. High school, earthwork was completed near the generator, and this month, asphalt will be placed near the generator. As we get into next month, we'll start going over some of the summer scope, but right now just kind of focusing on finishing up these additions. Any questions?
Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to receive this and place this on file. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Take care.
Moving to item C, we're going to discuss the 2022-23 Badger bus contract. We have Dr. Aslan.
And Gary and Judy Kuski on hand as well. I'll ask you to chime in certainly and come forward if you need to address the board. But at any rate, you'll recall that about a year ago, we did a contract renewal, 5-year renewal with Badger Bus. And as the contract provides for the ability for them to come to the district and say, hey, we're going to look for a increase for this next period of time. So in working with the Kuskis, as you'll see in board docs, a nominal increase for next year, and it is reflective of the fewer student days that come with the school calendar for next year that was approved at the last meeting. So very nominal increase. Gary or Judy, any additional information that you would like to provide?
The only thing is, we'd love to continue on providing services for the school district and here. And part of the community. We've always been more than willing to cooperate, whatever types of things the school district has wanted, and clarification, we've bent over backwards to try to make this happen. So, if anybody has any questions of us, we've been here a long time. I think we know what's happening. We appreciate your service.
Thank you, Gary. Are there any questions for the Kuskis? So what we're looking for is a consensus to move this to the regular board meeting. Do we have a consensus?
Yes.
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 Excellent. We'll move that to the regular board meeting. Thank you. Moving to item D, the science curriculum presentation. And we have Miss Eastrigan present.
All right. So for the Science Committee, we started our work this year, the start of the school year. Any science folks, if you want to come up and just stand by the mic, just in case the committee has any questions for any of you, come on up. So the work began at the start of the school year in August. Grade level teams collaborated and evaluated on all the next generation science standards in 3 categories. Endurance, which is the knowledge and skills that will last beyond the classroom. Leverage, which is the knowledge and skills that cross over into other domains. And then the readiness for the next level of learning, which is that important for the subsequent courses that are taking place. The science work group, this is just part of our committee. We had representation from each grade level for the elementary K through 8. And then 1 special ed from each building, 1 special ed teacher, 3 high school teachers, and our STEAM teacher was also part of this process. So we had a nice rounded group that was involved in the process. All right, so anybody want to jump in at any time, but our process was to identify the power standards. If elementary, you want to talk a little bit, if one of you want to just come up and say a couple things about that process for identifying those outcomes and benchmarks, feel free, and then the unpacking and vertical alignment. I don't.
Is it on? Oh, there we go. Okay, so for K4, when we came up with our benchmarks and with the outcomes, we looked at grade level above and below, and saw what each of us were focusing on, and then we kind of went through, and from there, we were able to choose what we wanted to focus on based upon the grade above and below what they were doing. And I think we also went through some of the other curriculum areas that we do too, and tried to see how we can integrate that in with science and social studies and that too with that, so.
Very nice, yes. So ELA, with our new resource, there was a nice crossover with some of those standards. So they were able to identify some of those skills that might have been mastered or just introduced between the science and ELA. Middle school, anyone want to step up? No one wants to step.
I will, because I don't really fit anywhere. I'm kind of the odd one out. I'm a 5th grade teacher, and I probably belong at the elementary building, but get to work with these lovely middle school ladies. So for me, I got to work with the elementary teachers and with the middle school teachers. So it was kind of a unique perspective. And we did pretty much the same thing where we talked with grades above and below and looked for stuff to help our students be successful for the next level. And did I miss anything? So it was a great process to be a part of. I think it was really interesting to see all the perspectives. It was a good experience.
All right, high school?
We prepared for this. As a high school science department, we reviewed the next generation science standards and selected those standards that would enable our students to be successful at the post-secondary level and become informed citizens of our community. The essential standards chosen are based on students understanding the characteristics of matter, energy, and their cycling through the environment. The standards were divided between the current course catalog and assigned overarching targets for each topic. In addition to revamping the essential standards, we have added additional essential topics in our courses that meet standards in earth, space, and engineering, which were selected to help students' growth. A graduate of Spooner High will receive a full education in all areas of science. We appreciate the work that we were able to do with the team, so thank you. Thank you, Ms. Giesregan, and also to the representatives from CISA who came to help us best prepare our students for the future.
Thank you, Megan. So, very important work. We identified some overlaps, so we made some adjustments from prior years' outcomes and benchmarks, and I think we're, as Megan said, better prepared for our students to graduate and ready to go. So moving forward, this is what our majority of our dedicated time will be, is focusing on these essential learning targets and the outcomes and benchmarks that we've established. Do you have any questions for the committee or myself?
Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Gary has one.
I'm just curious, there's no resources, or essentially you're using materials you're creating yourselves to go with these standards, or are you using all resources you already have? Does that make sense?
Excuse me, what was the name of that curriculum you're using? Pearson? Okay.
Their new name is SAVAS, so it's actually not Pearson anymore, it's SAVAS. SAAVAS, I believe.
So then a follow-up on that. I guess I think it was Ms. Giesregan who had mentioned that it aligns or somewhat aligns with the resources that are approved for ELA just recently. So are there things in there that will be used together? Like you'll be teaching, I don't know how to word it, but overlap in classes, is that's what's the implication would be? Between subject areas, I guess? Does that not make sense? I can't.
And at the elementary level, we have our ELA, so it will be integrated into ELA. But we also have a separate time for science and
social studies and/or social studies, where we'll do some experiments, depending on the grade level. We want to get some hands-on activities for kids. At the high school level, we're not as more professionalized.
Mhm.
When we do, I access English in lab notes and send the
Excellent. Are there any other questions? So what we're looking for is a consensus to move this to the regular board meeting. Do we have a consensus?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I believe item E, you are also presenting on social studies material presentation as well.
All right, any social studies folks, feel free to come on up. All right, so the next group here is our social studies work group. This work also began at the start of the school year in August. It consisted of approximately 14 staff members from grades K through 12. Again, one representative from each grade level, K through 8. And we had 3 high school teachers present. We used an evaluation rubric or a tool to help guide our work based on what we wanted or what we thought our vision was from a social studies perspective based on our essential standards. So the work group explored various samples and accessed materials online. Some of those resources that they reviewed are up on the board, as you can see. C3 teachers, an inquiry ed, social studies curriculum review, TCI, National Geographic, Pearson or Savas, and then DBQ project. There were some others that they kind of explored on their own that I didn't necessarily put in here, but as a group, these were some that we had listed. So what we are asking the board or presenting for the purchase is for the elementary K through 4, if you want to talk a little bit about benchmark and how that's integrated with your social studies. Anybody?
My favorite. Our process was similar to the science committee, it sounds like. Looking over our power standards, looking through different resources that were available. We do find that our benchmark advanced ELA curriculum that we are, or resource that we are getting, does align very well with the standards that we have picked as our power standards.
Sounds good, yes. And there'll be additional times where they'll have to supplement a little bit, but it does have a nice alignment component in there. So, and that's something we've already purchased through our ESSER funds, which is great, and through our district budget. Middle school, TCI. You want to talk about the TCI, why we chose TCI?
So we looked at a lot of different ones, and this one seemed to be the best for struggling readers. It had some great online applications, like when they were able to read, it'll follow along and it'll track with them, which is a really good skill for kids to learn. It also did the best job of covering the content or having the textbooks available for the things that we teach at the middle school. So that was kind of important to us because we kind of have a unique situation in middle school where the kids are coming to us with not a ton of social studies background. And so we try to give them as much of a brief overview of as many different topics as we can before they head off to the high school where they get that more in-depth knowledge.
All right, so that TCI aligns pretty well with our SASD curriculum that has been adopted, which is what we were looking for. And then it really has nice writing and that reading component as well. That was super important for our students. High school.
Good evening. So we all collectively started looking off at the guiding question, what do Spooner students need to be basically good citizens? And so we were kind of guided by the three ideas: knowledge, skills, and disposition, which were sort of the criteria we were using to analyze these resources. What we found was that the skills from these resources here aligned very much with the Wisconsin standards that we've been using to create our curriculum over the past several years. As far as the knowledge goes, the resources continue to build on what we've already created and are of an appropriate rigor, so that students can basically read it, but also be challenged in that reading as well. And we really found that McGraw-Hill and Houghton Mifflin for our content areas met all of those needs. Standard alignment, knowledge, and disposition, and kind of helped us continue to build with what we've already been doing.
Do you have any questions for the work group? So here's a cost. The budget, because ESSER, we already have Benchmark Advance, and that was purchased through these funds. The cost for these materials for 5th through 12th grade will be approximately $22,996.38. This will be taken out of the 22-23 school year budget, which has already been set aside for curriculum.
Are there any questions?
Is that budget amount just for 1 year, or is it something that can be used
That is a fantastic question.
over and
Yes.
over and over?
Oh, let me get that out for you. One of all my folders. Each of them is a little different. So depending on the company, depends on how their proposals come out. These are either a 3-year or a 5-year. So if you want to know specifically which company, either 3 or 5. And like I said, it depends on the company. Nothing under 3.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
So with those, we're going to get hard copies for students because we want a classroom set of hard copy. The rest is digital.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I can understand with social studies and history and stuff, materials would become outdated, but this might be an overlap in science. Does that, and obviously new science techniques are coming up, but once you have it, is it obsolete after the 3 to 5 years, or is it so you have to continue to revisit that?
It's a review cycle that you go through. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? All right, well, we're looking for consensus to move that to the regular board meeting for approval.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Do you have a question, Terry?
Before you leave,
Oh, tell them all. Thank you. Before they all leave.
So this is Teacher Appreciation Week? Staff Appreciation, excuse me. So just want to make sure that all the staff of Spooner Area School District, that we are very grateful and thankful to have an incredible team here. And so we as a board just want to say thank you and recognize all of your hard work. Thank you. Moving to item F, to discuss Spooner Middle School grading scale change proposals. Ms. Gies-Regan.
So I provided you with a proposal. Did you get a chance to take a peek at it? So what the middle school staff and I are requesting or asking is that the board consider changing our current grading scale, which is a 1, 2, and a 3 scale, which I had shared with you here, moving it to a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, so that we have a bottom and we have more of a top, so we can recognize those students that are exceeding the expectations, and then just recognizing when things aren't being assessed at that time. So that's my recommendation, asking the board to make a change.
Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So I think it's a great concept, and it seems to align maybe more so with what the high school has going on with letter grades and stuff. But curious if there was, do you have to break apart what you're already doing more, or will it separate itself on its own? Is there more work to be put done, or this is, essentially it?
This would provide more clarity for staff and students. Like right now, if you're going to look at it, that 2 seems like really broad, seems really open for kids. if you're thinking letter, which that's not how we're thinking. We're thinking like what students know and are able to do and demonstrate. This shows you if you give a 4, they're consistently exceeding that. They're consistently assessing above and can demonstrate they could teach it. You know, they could teach that skill where we don't have that. And it just gives that bottom piece too, where we don't necessarily have a bottom. Students who put very little effort in or are absent a long time, they still get a 1. They still get a minimum where there's no evidence, which is true. There's just no evidence at this time. So showing that growth and progression. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
If the board approves this change, will this become part of your student handbook for the 2022-23 school year?
Yes, we would like it to be. That would be the request, is to have this added to our handbook for a change effective in the fall of the 22-23 school year.
Michelle, you had a question?
Just from when we had this discussion before.
Yeah.
What was the change that made it go from, because at that time you guys were thinking A, B, C, D. And
Well-
then now you went,
We've always been 0, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
The other discussion had to do with honor roll too, and we were just trying to marry the two together if that was the direction the board wanted to go with, like an honor roll process. But that's not what we're talking about. We just want to change the grading scale so that we have that 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have that top and we have a bottom. Does that answer your question?
I don't know if this would really apply, but would it be easier if we were to do something but to hold kids back or to not pass them on to the next grade if that's something that we could do or would be doing? Maybe it doesn't happen at current, you know?
I think that's a different discussion to
Okay.
be had because that would be a policy change.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fair.
I think this would make it easier for the parents to understand what's going on, because that was one of the biggest arguments, or one of the concerns that we were hearing at this meeting several months ago, is that parents couldn't understand what a 2 was. They want to know, how is my child doing? And this would be easier for them to understand and communicate and the staff. Thank you.
I have a question. Is there a reason, I mean, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Is there a reason why we're not using letter grades? Well, instead of using numbers, you're basically essentially the same thing. So why not use A, B, C, D, and F?
Different scales. This is standards based, so it's based on students' performance on assessments on how well they know and understand a standard. So like our great curriculum work that we're working on, students are expected to know and be able to demonstrate a concept or a skill, and this just puts it out where there's a lot of, I guess a letter grade is more on an objective basis, so to speak. It's not concrete. This is concrete evidence when you do a standards based.
And how will a question I would have then, because we're moving this system to help parents better understand, how do we get that information? Is there a plan to get that information so parents understand that we're going through some new changes so that they can clearly see that we're making some changes?
If we change to this.
If it's approved.
Yep, if it's approved, what is our plan of action to communicate this?
Yes.
Sure. If it's approved, we can certainly send it out in a newsletter or a blast ahead of time, but we also have our open house every August as well, prior to our grading starting, where we always have our slideshow presentations, and we always send out our notifications, and then also including it in the packets that go home to families as well. with a letter.
Probably part of a year-long ongoing conversation with such a
Conferences
significant
and-
change.
Yep, conferences.
No, that's great. I mean, yeah, thank you. Are there any other questions?
I wasn't part of this obviously earlier, but was there a big push by parents to have this grading system changed? What initiated the whole thing as far as changing the grading system?
Well, from my recollection, we made some changes quite a while ago from, I believe it was a letter grade to this.
To the 1, 2, 3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it really threw parents off because they really couldn't understand where their child was at. And so there was
can see why.
quite a bit of feedback. And Paul, you were here at the time if you want to add anything, but that was what kind of precipitated some of the, yep. Any other questions? Thank you. So we're looking for a consensus to move this to the regular board meeting. Do we have a consensus?
Yes.
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 Excellent. We'll move that to the regular board meeting. Item G, discuss Spooner High School yearbook, Pine Bow Press, and Mr. Shears.
Sure, I'll leave it you. I was wondering if you would take it personally.
Nope, I didn't.
Probably should.
So what I'm kind of bringing to you here tonight is an informational process of a change that's happening at the high school, so it won't require you to do anything because it's not a change in curriculum. But what we're going to do next year, due to the fact of our RTI process that we have at the high school, which is response to intervention, which has two prongs. It's supposed to have two prongs, but our focus has been on remediation and getting kids to the point where they're passing grades. And if you remember, and I know you all do, 4 years ago, we had a high level of students that were not passing classes. It was something like 400, well, I guess it was exactly 456 kids, or excuse me, classes were failed. So as a result, we made some changes and developed a support system for students. Right now, we went through the COVID process. That did not help us, by the way. But the good news is we're on a pretty solid rebound. We're about 70% under that number right now of failing grades, which again is part of this process we call Rails time. So what we want to do is to continue to advance what we do and make some changes. One of the things I think is problematic in education is you keep doing the same thing and getting the same results, and the results aren't good. So what we're trying to do is build the enrichment part of this process. So one of the things we're going to do, and there's some other things I'll talk about at another COW meeting, but for tonight, we're making a change with our yearbook, and really all the changes that we've made at the high school, the first thing we ask is, how does it benefit our students? And what we found is students, due to scheduling, have a difficult time taking a yearbook class because it competes against some of the higher level classes we have in our building. And again, as a result of that, we kind of brainstormed, try to figure out, well, how can we do this? So I had to add some staff members step up that said they would be part of this process of change, and what we're going to do is offer yearbook during our Rails time for that enrichment process. So they will still receive credit, but now they'll give up their Rails time with the opportunity, if they do fall behind, they'll still be able to get the remediation they need. But again, this is a really positive change in my mind to help support all students. Again, we were focused on those because we had such a high failing rate. Once we've, I feel we have a better control over that, now we can offer that piece, and you'll see some of those moving parts at a future COW meeting. But I just wanted to let you know that'll be a little change, and I do want to mention there is always a little reluctancy on my part because the yearbook has been going really, really well. Ms. Sheik has done a great job. One of the things I look for, what's the worst thing that can happen in a yearbook? A mistake. Okay, that's there forever, right? And we have not had that issue. So Mrs. Birch will be taking over the teaching element of this process, and we'll have some two other staff members, Ms. Tischer and Cassidy will also be involved in that process. So again, I see this as a improvement, and I also see it as a better opportunity for all of our students. Questions for me?
Yes, Terry.
So is the yearbook considered the enrichment or the piece that they'll be able to do other things?
Or is the Rails time?
Yeah.
The yearbook,
Okay.
the things that they're certainly going to learn in that process.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
You bet.
So again, that is for our information, so appreciate that. Thank you. Moving to item H. Appoint board delegates to attend CISA 11 annual meeting, which is going to take place on Monday, June 6th, 2022 at 7 p.m. So I guess as we look at this, is there anyone who would like to volunteer themselves and say, yes, I would like to go to that?
I'll go.
I went
I
last
can
year.
go.
I went last year. It's
All
very
right.
good.
Yeah, I'll go.
Anybody else? All right. Well, we have a consensus that Mr. Joe Weiss will attend.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
I need to bring a full report back, right?
Excellent.
You meet others.
Item I. We're going to discuss the 2022-2023 board meeting dates. And is anybody going to present on that, or is that?
No, just, you have some recommended dates. Jesse has done a diligent job of kind of bouncing our typical first and third Mondays up against the calendar where there are holidays or school events or community events, so.
So does anybody have any questions about that? Everybody's had a chance to look at those? So
Yeah,
what,
I'm all in favor of the first and third Mondays. That works good, I think, for me anyway.
so what we're looking for then is a motion to adopt these dates and time.
Don't you move it forward?
Or do we need to move this as a, or can we adopt it tonight? Consensus to move it.
Consensus tonight.
All right, do we have a consensus to move this to the regular board meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, all right, excellent. Do that. Item J, Volume 31, Number 1, Neola Policy Updates, Group 1. What we're looking for is a consensus to move that to the regular board meeting for the first reading. Do we have a consensus to move that forward to the regular board meeting?
Yes.
Excellent. Item K, discuss the 2022-2023 open enrollment applications.
I do want to speak to those a little bit. So you have them in board docs. And so as you can see with the notation that's in there, there's a period of time for families to request open enrollment but when you look at what we're seeing there, you have 2 students that have applied for open enrollment in. You have 53 students with 60 applications for open enrollment out.
Do we know the main reason for the ones that are leaving?
When they, good question, and they just, when they apply for open enrollment, that's just not something that they need to disclose. I think you can take a look. You have a pretty fair chunk of those that are online schools, but there are also a pretty fair amount that are neighboring school districts or regional school districts. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important that we know why they're leaving somehow, so that we can either correct what the problems are or at least have a handle on why people leave and we can address that. Is there a way to do that? Or is
You
it
know,
confidential? why
No,
they
I don't
leave?
think it's confidential. I guess, for President Melton, I'd recommend that be a agenda item for the next month's committee of the whole meeting, where we can talk about contingencies where we might be able to get that. And here's what I want to say. We were in front of you last month with a preliminary budget that we were saying, hey, we are really squeezing a nickel to try to balance a budget up. And we lost 100 kids during the COVID year, and we got most of those back. But to have 53 students looking to leave is significant. Now, the caution that I would provide is we wait until September to see who actually goes someplace different, because sometimes people say we have a window of time that we have to apply within, and if we don't, our opportunity's gone, and they may not exercise that later. But striking terms, certainly, as you look at these numbers.
Are they? Can't read it because it's pretty small. But are they mainly younger kids, high school kids? What age group is the?
It's a variety.
Variety. Okay.
How does it compare to years past?
First off, I couldn't give you chapter and verse. I would say that it's probably fewer open enroll requests in, and it's probably more open requests out. Comparing with previous years.
I was gonna ask you.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
Any other discussion or questions?
Are we going to make that an agenda item then, for future board meeting?
I will work to put on the follow-up with those on the agenda for the next COW meeting.
Okay.
For this item, we do need to have a consensus to move this to the regular board meeting for action.
Yes.
Do we have a consensus?
Yes.
Yes.
Item L, discuss employee handbook updates.
So after a year of no handbook updates due to COVID and the inability to convene a committee, we did convene a committee that had been approved and appointed by the board some months ago. That committee met a number of times, and they had kind of a dual responsibility. One was to serve as a building rep or an employee group rep as part of the committee at large, but more importantly, to go back and have conversations with those they represented, whether it was from their employee group or their building group or whatever the case may be. So lots and lots of conversation, and then a good number of items brought forward. And then as we went through the process to say, hey, what are the most high priority changes, and doing that in an environment where we know where we've been able to do some things financially in the past handful of years that won't be a possibility next year. So what your document is there is the item, what it currently reads, what changes have been made, and what the recommended wording of that would be. So that is the overview of the process, and I'd ask you to, if you haven't had a chance to look at that in depth, and any questions that you may have can come to me or they can come to Caitlin, and we will get you answers to those questions.
There's not any other questions. Do we have a consensus to move this to the regular board meeting for its first reading?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. We will move that to the regular board meeting. Item M, discuss facility overnight storage request. Has everybody had an opportunity to look that over? And do we have a consensus to move that to the regular board meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Item N, 4K programming for the 2022-23 year, and we have a presentation by Dr. Aslan and Mr. Bergheimer.
Well, good evening. We're going to talk a little bit about four-year-old kindergarten. And for those board members that had a chance to tour that new addition, certainly exciting times with the facility and the opportunity that it's going to bring for children and families as we go forward. Our current situation is this. We are currently housing 2 sections of four-year-old kindergarten at Spooner Elementary School, and we have 1 section at the Head Start building. Our enrollment right now is 48 students, and that's pretty consistent with what it's been over the past few years. The Community Development Institute, or CDI as we'll refer to it, is currently operating the Head Start program in Spooner and in other locations in the region on an interim basis. And you'll recall when they took over that operation officially on orders the 1st of July, their assignment was to be 6 to 12 months. At this point, there's no end in sight to their administration of the program. And again, they are an organization that is geared to do interim coverage, not ongoing coverage. So we just, information slow coming about what the next step and who will run the Head Start on a more permanent basis. And at this point, just no information. So as we look to 2022-23, we see that we have this new section of the Spooner Elementary School opening up. 4 beautiful 4K classrooms. We have the staff already on hand to stand up 3 classrooms and operate them with 4K students. The recent curriculum work that you've received information, briefings, and updates on aligns the 4K academic work with the rest of the elementary school and subsequently with the rest of the district. 2-year increasing parent demand for student placement in the Spooner Elementary sections, more demand than availability. It's been increasing each year. There's students that aren't in 4K now because they could not get a place in one of the Spooner Elementary sections because they were full. So certainly there are some opportunities. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bergheimer.
All right. So our proposed actions and rationale would be to terminate the Spooner Area School District participation in the 2021 MOU with the CDI Corporation. Again, that started with, before my time, with the ICAA partnership. ICAA lost it to the Head Start grant, and like Dr. Aslan said, we have a temporary interim agency, CDI, and through several conversations with those folks, there aren't really any replacement on the horizon. And, you know, just looking at the importance of consistency, something that hasn't been available to us for the last couple of years, we really look to be able to provide a consistent placement for our students, and us being probably standing alone would be the best option and the most consistent. To locate all sections of the 4K at the Spooner Elementary School. Obviously, you folks have seen the facility. It's designed specifically to serve our children. Bathrooms in all of the classrooms, smart boards, user-friendly for height, all of those types of things, and even the color scheme was considered for a safe and comfortable environment for our students. In depth of resources for our students under one roof, we'd be able to provide counseling in our building to help with social emotional, We'd be able to provide myself to help with the behavior needs, and also we have room for growth. Dr. Aslan hit on this a little bit earlier. The demand to be in our building, and Mr. Hopke could agree with us, over the last couple of years have been really high. Even throughout this last school year, we ended up moving a few students up to our building. And then with the, with the data we just looked at, the importance of granting our families in Spooner the opportunities to be in our building is obviously important to keep them in our district. And then use current SES staff to facilitate our 4K. We have 3 teachers that have years of experience teaching 4K. Those staff members are excited for the opportunity, or the potential opportunity, for us to be able to provide a 4K program on our own. We also have a couple paraprofessionals that also have years of experience working with 4K programming. Adequate number of students on hand, and we also have the SASD curriculum and the 4K staff part of the development process. The Ready to Advance is the 4K piece, and that is the part that of the benchmark advance that's been recently adopted. So again, like Dr. Aslan has said, we have a bridge to kindergarten with our current curriculum, and I think that's really important for consistency throughout our elementary. So that's what we're looking for our proposed action, is to, again, to terminate the SASD participation in the 21 MOU with CDI. Any questions?
Is there any financial ramifications? Are we taking on ourselves that is currently being provided by DCI that we're going to have to assume on our own?
From my knowledge, right now, and Dr. Aslan can say more probably, but I believe it probably costs us a little bit more than what we are bringing in currently.
Yeah. It'd be a nominal cost savings by having a standalone program.
Are there any other questions? Excellent. Well, thank you. So what I'm looking for is, do we have a consensus to move this to the regular board meeting?
Yes.
Yes. So we'll move that to the regular board meeting. Item O, discuss salary increase for non-teacher employee groups. Dr. Aslan.
You have a memo in board docs that, in essence, makes the request to provide the 2.3% pay increase for the employee groups outside of the teacher group that you made that decision on last month.
And it's already part of budget for next year.
Correct.
Thank you.
I think this is great. This keeps us consistent, and I think it's great that we can do this. And so, but we're looking for a consensus to move on that at the regular board meeting. Do we have a consensus?
Yes.
Yes.
Item P, discuss establishment of an activity account for boys hockey. Dr. Aslan?
Spooner Rails Hockey Squad, raring to get going, fundraising. They need your authorization for an activity account to begin that work.
So this is pretty exciting. Is there any questions about that? Excellent. So we're looking for a consensus to move that to the regular board meeting.
Yes.
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 Item Q, we're looking to discuss payments of our 2008 bonds. Dr. Aslan?
So you have a memo in board docs. What I would say is, in a nutshell, there has been levying in the past referendum levying for prepayment or early retirement of debt. There is an adequate amount of money in that account, and I want to be real clear, only for the purpose of retiring debt. So not money we can use to balance a budget or anything like that. But there is adequate money on hand to retire the 2008 debt. And if that was approved, it would result in about a $79,000 savings to the taxpayers in paying off that debt. So pretty sizable amount of savings there.
Thank you. Is there any questions about that? Seeing none, do we have a consensus to move that to the regular board meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Item R, our 30, 60, 90-day planning. Has everybody had the opportunity to look at those? And are there any questions on that?
No.
All right, no questions. We're going to receive that and place those on file. Financial update, we don't have that
Yep,
available.
just going to let you know that, as we have, district finances have tightened up, we're approximately $1 million less on hand than we were. And again, we're working 2 months in reverse. So $1 million less on hand than the district had on hand at that time a year ago. So we continue to be okay in paying our bills, but just a reflection of the financial condition in the district.
Thank you, Dr. Aslan. Item T, approval of the vouchers. If you've had an opportunity to look at those, is there any questions about those vouchers? If none, do we have a consensus to move that forward for our consent agenda for the regular board meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, well, we've come to the very end. Do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.